Gonna check out the DVO 36 D1 single crown Onyx 180 millimeter fork. So this is a old fork straight off Facebook Marketplace, and it includes a whole bunch of stanchion and lowers damage. So I'm gonna tear it apart, make sure everything's okay inside, take it for a ride, and tell you what it does best. So the Onyx D1 features the OTT system, and I'm gonna do a full explanation of it, and basically that giant sticker there is kind of explaining how to use it. Close inspection of the 36, it's a pretty burly fork, featuring bleeder valves and high and low speed compression. Moving the high speed compression knob, you have to basically reef on it with the low speed upper knob. It's a little bit finicky, but it does do the job. The rebound range on the 36 and DVO forks is very large. I think it's like over 20 clicks on this guy, so most people can get along with it. So setting the OTT on this fork, it takes some getting used to. Basically, you've got to match the OTT, the bottom adjuster, to the air pressure to get the right feel. And if you don't do it correctly, the fork kind of dives into its travel and it will seem like it's broken. Okay guys, I gotta change the travel because it's a 160 millimeter fork. So we got two 18 millimeter bolts on the bottom, unthread those, couple standard top caps, take the lower bolts, put them back in the fork and hammer on them, and that'll break everything loose like normal. Properly dispose of your oil. So basically the fork's kind of stuck together at this point. I'm like, that's kind of weird. Never had that happen before, but let's carry on. So basically get yourself some pin spanners or some high-end snap ring pliers and unthread the bottom of the stanchion, and then you can pull this whole little mechanism out, basically the OTT system. Now after you get the OTT system out of the fork, you can basically adjust the travel, but I thought at this point, what the heck, I'm gonna pull the compression assembly out of the fork, show you what it looks like and what it does. So the compression assembly is a little bit unique. It's kind of a new school, old school kind of system. It's got a bladder assembly, but it sits in a bath of oil. So we could call it a hybrid open bath style compression damper assembly, and correct me if I'm wrong because I do not know everything. So this is the air spring on the DVO Onyx 36 OTT system on the right. Basically the upper part is the air piston, and then this whole spring thing on the bottom is the negative air spring. It makes kind of a mixture of old school and new school. And look, we've got a rubber piece there, so let's call it buttercups and put stickers all over it. The DVO OTT system is quite unique. It adds quite a bit of complexity to the fork, but you get all the benefits of air and coil within one shock. If you've never rode a coil fork, they're pretty amazing. The red air spring is a RockShox Lyric air spring. So as you can see, it's very simple. And the one on the right is the DVO one, and it's quite a bit more complex. So basically the negative air chamber is from the upper seal head to the first O-ring there. And that's the negative air chamber that supports the upper air chamber. And DVO uses that giant spring on this side to support the negative side of the air chamber. So it's quite a bit more complex, but it does have some benefits and some drawbacks that I'll cover later in the video. The OTT adjuster threads into there and basically preloads this spring, and it can make it a little bit challenging for your setup. Now let's check out the compression assembly within the DVO fork, and as you can see, it's all oily because it sits in a bath of oil. Now I have a more standard style compression assembly. This is a RockShox Lyric charger damper, and all the oil is sealed within the bladder. I personally don't know the difference, but I like the DVO damping a lot better than RockShox. It's much more fine-tuned and has plenty of mid-stroke support. One benefit of the complex OTT system is travel change is super easy. Basically pull these little washers out, the fork goes from 180 to 160. The negative air spring clips back on there and you're basically ready to go back together. Whoever serviced this fork last did not do the instructions like it says. Basically, it tells you to make a giant mess with marine grease and coat the OTT spring, and I'm assuming this is going to make a quieter ride because the spring could rattle around maybe. And you have to be super careful in what oil you put in the DVO fork. They have a specified list because if you put RockShox oil in it, apparently it can ruin it. Now servicing the DVO Onyx 36, it's not super hard, but it's extremely messy. It's probably the biggest mess I've ever made. Now the 36 Onyx is a burly fork. Don't fall for the marketing. 36mm stanchion forks are freaking awesome, and this one seems really burly in person. Now taking the fork out for its first initial ride, It feels really burly underneath me. It is 170mm, 36mm stanchion fork. So let's take it on the trail. First section of routes, I was really impressed by this fork. I was like, wow, it feels really burly and really stiff. So not only is it really good at aggressive riding, it's also absolutely amazing on those cross-country transfer stages. It has all that small bump sensitivity that everyone loves to brag about. Coming into this jump line, I was like, let's see how it goes. So first jump, not super good. Second jump, not good. Third jump, not good. Now this isn't my first rodeo on DVO OTT system, so I know precisely what to do. Basically, you gotta run a stupid fast rebound on the DVO forks because of their OTT design. Now after notching the rebound up quite a few clicks, probably like 5 clicks, I think I was at 10 clicks from fully slow, it started to feel quite a bit better. And don't forget about that absolutely amazing trail experience with all its small bump sensitivity. Now the performance was acceptable, but I realized I had not put any effort into setup. And remember, it's very unique suspension and it requires quite a bit of effort on your part to get it right. Now DVO's suspension setup on their website is actually really good. I've used it multiple times and it's very accurate. So you just have to follow it to the letter and your fork will feel better than how it did on my first ride. And don't forget, these are guidelines. Don't be afraid to go off of what it says. These are just really good starting points. First step is to drop all the air out of the fork and flip the bike upside down. We gotta check the OTT system with all the air out of the fork. Setting OTT for me is easy because I'm more than 200 pounds. So basically I just move the OTT to the full plus setting. Remember, these are starting points, so you can change the OTT to your desired settings. You just don't want it fully tight with super low air pressure. They have to be somewhat balanced. Setting your OTT if you're under 200 pounds could be a little difficult. You just have to follow the clicks for your air pressure. And they give you a starting air pressure that's super accurate, so trust the system and take the time. For my riding style, the plush setting was best. If you ride super hard, go for the firm setting maybe. And for the third time, don't be afraid to change the air pressure, they're just starting points. Now pump the shock up to the recommended pressure after setting the OTT. Told me to run about 80, so I said, let's send it. So the recommended rebound will be based off the air pressure, and it told me to run 10 clicks. I had already had it set up at 10 clicks from my first ride. Going for a more serious bike ride, let me tell you how I ride all winter. They're basically called electric socks. They're absolutely amazing. You can continue to wear your summer shoes all winter long and not have frozen toes. Linked in the description on Amazon. This is my 57-pound Specialized Caneva, and look at that 36. It's super burly. I have no complaints of this fork as far as rigidity so far, but we're gonna test it out on the big rock gardens. To make your e-bike survive, basically this is what you gotta run. Downhill casing tires, full downhill wheels, skid plates, short cage derailleur, Shimano downhill Saint brakes, and some super beefy front end like the DVO Onyx 36. Now let's go ride it. First gandered through the rock garden, little mellow run on my newly found setup. It didn't feel super balanced, so I knew I was gonna need to make some extra adjustments. Getting the perfect fork setup may require you to adjust the rear shock, so don't overlook that. So after my minor adjustments, coming down this nasty rocky trail, the performance of the DVO Onyx 36 is absolutely outstanding when the wheels are on the ground. This fork tracks so good, it's absolutely amazing. The mid-stroke support of the damper is absolutely outstanding. This fork does not dive. You can expect some really high quality damping out of the DVO 36. The performance of the DVO 36 is amazing. It is a super solid fork. So I did a little investigating, and basically this is why it feels so stiff. It's almost a pound heavier than a Fox 36. So there's the big trade-off. It weighs a lot more and it feels a lot stiffer. Now taking my newfound setup out to my little jump line, the performance of the DVO properly set up on jump lines is good. It is not great. Lends itself more to wheels on the ground style of riding, so if you're that kind of rider, you're absolutely gonna love this fork. Now to get the proper DVO full experience, you have to click the video on the screen.